Welcome back to Comic Book History. That's better. Episode number 54. You're probably thinking, why did I say that's better? Because I accidentally said the wrong thing before, because I was just basically doing two comic cores. Okay. With this episode, basically discussing another Steve Ditko character. You're probably thinking, okay, you discussed the three from Marvel, aside from Spider-Man. And who are you going to next? Well, I'm going to Charlton Comics, one of the four characters he created for Charlton. That being the Ted Kord Blue Beetle. The second character to basically assume the character identity. Now you're probably thinking, why are you starting with Ted Kord even though that he is the second Blue Beetle and you could talk about Dan Garrett? Because this is a marathon of Steve Ditko episode, so we're talking about Steve Ditko's characters. Okay? Now, in the case of the Ted Kord Blue Beetle, his first appearance was in Blue Beetle #1 from the late 60s. A book that lasted for 5 issues, believe it or not. Yes, it was a very quick comic book, and mostly put just... Now, the thing with Ted Kord was he was basically the student of the original Blue Beetle, Dan Garrett, who was originally picked as an archaeologist. I think it was a policeman, though Charlton, when they got the character, they rebooted him as an archaeologist, where in fact that it was later revealed in a retcon that apparently he got his hands on the Blue Beetle Scarab. The same scarab that Jaime Reyes uses. Ted Kord had for years and never got it to work. So, in the initial first appearance of the Ted Kord Blue Beetle, Dan Garrett apparently dies. Yep, they killed him off in the opening issue. Also the same issue of Ted Kord's debut, we also debut of The Question. I will discuss him in the next episode, believe it or not, because I love this character. After the initial Blue Beetle comic wrapped up with 5 issues, he later appeared in Charlton Bullseye. Basically, so it was just a book basically for like unpublished stories because of the cancellation of the book. And he was featured in a one-shot called where he teamed up with a bunch of other Charlton heroes called the Sentinels of Justice. Basically, I know that Link Hard did his own thing for Ted Kord, but I figured I wanted to get my own take on it. Then after that, he showed up in Crisis of Infinite Earths. And then, after Crisis of Infinite Earths, he was featured in the Justice League book. Well, actually, it was after Legends he was featured in Justice League. Yeah, where he became founding member of the group that later became known as Justice League International, where he was part of this group up until it was disbanded in the mid-90s. Yeah, part of this group for a long time. And during this period of time, he got another series, which is collected right here. The Blue Beetle comic book. This book collects all 24 issues of the original run. Plus, of course, Secret Origins #2, which for some reason they put after the initial issues. Yeah, this is basically... You can kind of think of it as like Ted Kord doing his normal things. Also, if you think about it, you're probably thinking like, what vehicle is that? That's the Bug. You might be thinking, wait, isn't that the same type of vehicle that the Owlman from Watchmen uses? Well, his vehicle is based upon this particular one because his character is based upon Ted Kord Blue Beetle. Yes. Now, the Bug itself made his debut back in Ted Kord's original appearance, and this comic, you can kind of think of it as sort of a semi-iteration of that comic book. The whole book is written by the late Leen Wein, who I expressed with years ago. Yeah, he wrote all the issues, and... The artwork is done by very different artists. You have Paul Collins, who does most of the issues. I'd say pretty much like the first 14 issues he does. For issues 15, 16, he is done by Russ Odger. Paul Collins does come back to the book. They have a few other artists like Chris Wudda, Gail Kane, Don Heck, who was an editor over at Charlton. Which, how did he show up at DC? Apparently, DC decided to buy Charlton, and basically the character's going to give it to their former editor, Dick Giordano. Yep. Not only got him, but pretty much all the regular characters for the Charlton universe, which they were integrated into the DC universe proper. Their Earth was classified as Earth 4 before Crisis of Infinite Earths happened. Yep. And... with the end of this book basically dealing with the whole thing with Millennium, which ended this book along with Booster Gold for some reason. If you're curious though what happens in this series, just pick this book up and you'll basically get a chance to see exactly what happened in this book. This book was just pure fun. Yes. It's basically, the way I heard described in an interview, when LeCar mentioned it, was that Lee Wing wrote it as if Steve Ditko himself would write it. Yep. And once it was concluded, he just continued hanging out in Justice League International with his BFF, Booster Gold, doing oddball schemes. Yeah, and also Ted Kore's company was later in the 2000s bought by Wayne Enterprises. Yep, he bought the company. He also bought Terrific Tech. Yeah, he did. And pretty much after now, once Justice League, now in Justice League International, aside from the comedy stuff, during the events of Death of Superman, he got like beaten to a pulp by freaking Doomsday, and he was the first superhero to fight it before Superman did. Yeah, too bad Superman Doomsday doesn't reference that at all. Nope. And Ted Kord was in a coma for a brief period of time, though he got out and he basically went back to his jokey self. Once Justice League ended, he didn't do very much for the next few years until he became a supporting character in the pages of the Birds of Prey. He also retired to being Blue Beetle. Yep, he had retired. And he apparently had retired because he suffered from heart problems. That was simple, the gist of it. And once Chuck Dixon left the book, he did also briefly appear in the miniseries Law, which had the return of like all the Charlton heroes. With him and The Question, like all the classic ones. Team Up for One Good Adventure. It's written and drawn by Bob Layton, which is a pretty good miniseries, by the way. And then, after he pretty much started preparing Birds of Prey, I don't think he did very much after that. And then, Countdown to Infinite Crisis one-shot happened. Oh boy, this thing. Where Ted Kord suspects a conspiracy in DC Universe. And he goes to confront Maxwell Lord, who was responsible for this conspiracy. And what does Maxwell Lord do to him? Maxwell was someone he knew from his JLI days, by the way. They got on pretty well. And this, of course, was by Jeff Johns. And what does Maxwell Lord do? Has basically Blue Beetle beaten up, and then he does something really grotesque. He fires a gun and blows a hole in Ted Kord's head, having all the guts splattered over the panel. Why in the world that someone at DC thought this was a good idea, I have no idea. Though, basically, Max Lord himself, he, believe it or not, was never actually, let's say, charged with that the Blue Beetle. Nope, never was. What happened with him? Well, he got his neck snapped by Wonder Woman. Yep. All because everybody revealed Ted Kord was right, and that led into Crisis of Infinite Earths. Which, of course, the Scarab that, was Captain Ted Kord in possession for years, ended up in the hands of Jaime Reyes. Now you probably think, okay, with Ted Kord dead, what happened with him next? Well, they did some time traveling, though they briefly tried to bring back the character in the pages of the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, which turned out to be a bad thing, which he later died again anyways. After that, DC did nothing with the character until he popped up in the final issue of Forever Evil in a cameo, where he basically offered Lex Luthor to buy his company because he was old enough to run the company ever since his father, Theodore Kord, was killed in a helicopter crash at the start of Forever Evil. Lex like, no, I'm going to help you out. And after that, Ted Kord was never seen again. Until DC Rebirth. 3 years later. Yeah, Jeff Johns did this. Yes, where originally the Scarab that Jaime Reyes had, it was implied magic was involved with it, and then was later retconned, oh yeah, which is an alien device. And then, oh yeah, it's magic again. For some reason. And then he became a supporting character in the pages of the Blue Beetle comic, the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle comic, where he had Keith Giffen once again writing the book. He also wrote the original volume, the first volume that featured Jaime Reyes. This was the third volume featuring the character. And Ted Kord was there as a supporting character. At one point, Jaime Reyes couldn't use the Scarab for a brief period of time. So for a couple issues, he decided to have, Jaime wear his costume. Also, Ted, despite being retired and being a mentor to, Jaime Reyes, he never put on the costume the whole book. Nope. Jaime did for a couple issues. I thought that was quite nice. And when I talked about when the artist of the book, he said that the only reason why the bug actually appeared in the book because that was actually requested by editorial mandate. This editorial mandate I actually like because it's actually a smart move. That was something that Jeff Johns requested that Keith Giffen and the other writer of the book do, and they're happy to do it. Yeah, the bug was featured in pretty much the entire series, and then it ended after 16 issues. I think it was actually it was 18 issues. Yeah, the original writer left, and then it was taken by a different writer, and the book ended. I think afterwards, Ted Kord has since popped up occasionally after that. He popped up in cameos here and there. His most recent appearance was actually Heroes in Crisis. We were working on Boost to Goat again. And that's basically been it for Ted Kord. He's an absolute cool character. And I know it didn't delve into him very much. But he's been jokey. If you're curious though, has he had any noteworthy villains? Well, he had one group of villains, the Madmen. Yep. Who fought him frequently over the years. Yep. Though those characters did pop up in the opening issue of Nightwing. Yeah, when Nightwing fought him. Yeah, but did he fight any villains? I think he fought Goldface. But he never had any noteworthy villains per se. Not let's say Doctor Strange. Yeah. And basically when it comes to the appearance of the Ted Kord's costume, which by the way, his costume never changed. The costume itself, basically, from what I can tell, I think a lot of people pointed this out, it's very heavily inspired by Spider-Man. That's simple gist of it. Though, the whole thing of basically a character like him owning his own company, that was something that apparently Marvel picked up on and gave it to Spider-Man in mid-2010s. Yep. And mostly when it comes to Ted Kord, from his Charlton debut up until Flashpoint, yeah, his entire history was pretty much canon. There was no real change to it at all. The Blue Beetle comic book, basically, if you read it, it is a damn good read. Even though it's only 24 issues. And it was probably canceled for the same reason that Boost to Go got canceled. I talked to Dan Jurgens about basically Boost to Go got canceled 25 issues. This may be canceled for the same reason. According to Jurgens, the reason why Boost to Go ended the 25 issues was because the comic store sales were good, the newspaper stand sales were terrible, which I would figure though by the 80s with the rise of comic shops by then, okay, why were you still selling comic books at newsstands? I've been to a newsstand. I have never seen a comic there at all. Yeah, they basically have stores now, so they don't need to have newsstands anymore. I've heard that was the reason that Boost to Go ended. But could that have been the reason why that the Blue Beetle comic ended? Don't know. But the Blue Beetle comic by Lee Wein was fantastic. Now, the thing is, when Lee Wein passed away a few years ago, if I bring this to Comic-Con, who could I possibly meet to sign this? Well, not Steve Ditko. Nope, he passed away a couple years ago, so he's out of the question. Probably not Gail Kane, maybe Don Heck. I'm not really sure. My only guess is maybe the editor of the book. Yeah, whoever the editor was, I can maybe bring it to him. Which was... Actually, no, I can't bring it to the other because he's dead too. Wow. Oh, by the way, if you want to get a taste of the interior artwork of this book, yeah, it's a black and white, but it is so good. Here's Ted Kord right here. Yes, this artwork is fantastic. By far, in my opinion, despite being a short-lived comic book, it's one of DC's best comics to come out from the 80s. And fun fact about that particular book, it was the last official showcase book ever released. This was released a year after actually 2 years after Marvel stopped selling theirs. I picked this up from Midtown Comics 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago, and this book is so good that there's no dog-eared page. I think there may be a couple dog-eared pages here, but no. I think the only thing worn out about this book is the cover is a bit worn out here, but this book is good. And in the case of the Ted Kord Blue character, he's an absolute fantastic character. And if you're curious though, is the entire Justice League America series in trade? Most of it is. It's not finished yet. No. I think the furthest they got to, because I'd say most of it's collected. Oh yes, most of it has. Like there was this crossover that was Breakdowns, which is a cross between Justice League, Justice League America, and Justice League in Europe, which that's finally in trade, and that was actually the end of basically Keith Giffen J. Miles' era for the books. But in the case of Justice League America itself, I would say it was collected up to about issue 90. I think there's about like a year. I think about a couple of years. I think it's about 22 issues left to be collected. But I'd say most of the whole series is in trade, so you can probably check it out. No problem. DC's been re-releasing books recently in the last couple of years. Yep. Not much else to say, but take our Blue Beetle. Fantastic character. Yep. So yeah, that's it for this particular review. My next comic history, we'll be discussing another popular Steve Ditko character, The Question. I've always wanted to talk about this character. Yes, I have discussed a couple of his trades from his original ongoing series in the 80s, but I really want to talk about The Question. And if I'm thinking, is there any other character from Charlotte I could talk about? Well, in the case of 54 would definitely be The Question, definitely. Actually, this is 54. 55 be The Question. 56 actually Captain M and Nightshade. And starting 55 up until at some point I'll be discussing his DC characters, which there's a good handful of them. There's actually a lot more than, let's say, his Charlton or his Marvel era of characters. But this next video would probably be another video for To Love Rue. Okay, this next video. Bye.